Hallo zusammen, ich bin heute hier in Frankfurt auf der Content World und hier auf der Konferenz geht es sich rund um das Thema Content Marketing, Content Strategie, aber vor allem Trends im Content Marketing. Und dazu habe ich heute das richtig große Glück gehabt, dass ich Robert Rose interviewen dürfte. Und für alle diejenigen von euch, die Robert noch nicht kennen sollten, das ist der Chef Content Stratege beim Content Marketing Institute aus den USA. Und wir beide haben uns halt über sein Buch unterhalten und über Trends im Content Marketing. Und wer mich ein bisschen kennt, der wird merken, dass ich auch ziemlich nervös war. Das ist aber immer bei mir, sobald die Kamera läuft. Aber es geht hier um den Inhalt, es geht um den Content und ich hoffe, dass der Content gefällt euch einfach. Okay, schaut einfach mal rein, wie das Interview geworden ist. Viel Spaß dabei. And here we are, Robert. Thank you very much that you're here. Great to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
How do you like your stay in Germany and how you like the event conference today?
Well, this is my first day at the event. I was just in Berlin yesterday. I always love coming to Germany. So I actually got my first day in Berlin ever. So I got to see the sunset over Brandenburg Gate, which was just amazing. And then I got the train here to Frankfurt just last night. So I got to see a lot of the German countryside as I came over. And so I'm really looking forward today to a lot of great talks on content marketing for sure.
And you also mentioned content marketing now in Germany. So what do you think? Where would you place and rank content marketing in Germany? Is it in its early stage or you would say it's full grown already?
I think it's early. I think, when I was actually talking with someone last night just about this, and I think if we look at the European market more broadly, I think in terms of market maturity, I think Germany's right up there with Amsterdam or Holland and more broadly, and then Scandinavia. I think those are the three leading countries right now. I think, followed closely maybe by the UK. I think where we're not seeing a lot of activity is in France and Spain and Italy and more Southern Europe. And I think the German market in particular seems to be really latching on to content marketing as an approach, as a marketing approach. Whereas in some of the other European countries, it seems to be really taking on as a PR or a corporate communications practice. And I think it works better as a marketing approach. Well, it works better as an integrated approach across all of the business. But I think in that aspect, I think that the German market is understanding sort of the fundamental drivers of content marketing, really well.
In your book, you mention also that we are in the middle of a seismic shift now in marketing, and that the users are going to play a very specific role in there. Can you explain why?
Well, we as consumers have adapted to the last 20 years. I mean, we're 20 years into this whole web, digital, email thing, right? 2 decades into this thing, and as consumers, we've adapted. We use our smartphones in stores, and we make sure that we can get it on Amazon Prime, and we call for Ubers, and we look at Airbnb. We have adapted to this new technology-driven, disrupted world. The challenge is that many in marketing, just as we're speaking, have not adapted to this world, right? We're still creating marketing departments in the same way that we've created them for hundreds of years. And we still operate from these war-minded, metaphors like campaigns and tactics and front lines and back lines. And it's like, that's old thinking. And we need to reposition ourselves as marketing departments to really take advantage of this 24/7, 365 days a year, always on idea of creating great experiences for consumers at every single touch point they might have with our brand. And if we don't evolve into this new world, we're going to be left behind as a business.
You also mentioned in your book that we are in you call it the experience era, and you gave in the book 3 fundamental argumentation points for that. Could you just resum it?
Sure. So the first is that the relationship has changed, and what I mean by that is that for the last, you can really measure the last 20 years, we've been in what most marketing scholars will call the relationship era, where we've used data and technology to develop a deeper relationship with our customer. And that's really sort of peaked now with this idea of social media and how we might develop a relationship with consumers over social media. But that, we can see very quickly, is breaking down. You know, the trust is breaking down. The idea of social media having the reach that it promised us is breaking down. And the relationship with consumers is becoming more complex. And so as channels start to fragment and as audiences start to fragment across all the different devices that they might access our brand on, we have to be there in a way that delights them, in a way that creates a more valuable experience for them. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that marketing's relationship with in general has changed. In other words, marketing's relationship with the business has changed. It has become more strategic. The product and service that we actually put into the marketplace these days is commoditized. It can be bought in India, it can be bought in China, it can be bought in the US, it can be bought here in Europe, and it doesn't really matter what we do. The world is a much smaller place. And so our product or service really has to be accompanied with something that's much more strategic around a customer experience. And so our ability to do that, and I'll contend that it's marketing's responsibility to do that, is really, really important. And so marketing must become more strategic in the business. In other words, as I often say, marketing's job right now is to describe the current value of the business. And instead, marketing must start creating new value for the business by creating these customer experiences that add that extra value. And the last thing is really this idea of the democratization of content and experiences, right? So as these channels begin to fragment, as these audiences begin to fragment over as many devices as they have, our ability to create content is really going to become the differentiator in our business. And so as we start looking at social media and mobile and all these different channels, our ability to use content as a muscle in our business is really going to be something that differentiates us. And it's so funny to me. One of the things that I notice so often is we don't argue with legal being a process in the business or sales being a process in the business or accounting. But here's this thing, content, the thing we produce more than anything else, even more than our product or service. We produce more of it than anything that we do. And yet it's not a process in the business. We don't recognize it's kind of everybody's job and nobody's job. And so we have to start treating content as an asset, as a strategic asset that we manage carefully, because that ultimately is going to be what differentiates us. So those three things together, I think, spell a compelling argument for marketing to evolve into something where, as I say, marketing doesn't change content's purpose. Content really should change marketing's purpose.
You can make content marketing, but you have to put content strategy before, right?
Yeah, well, yes. It's when I look at content strategy versus content marketing, they're interrelated for sure. So when I look at content strategy, it's the holistic practice of managing and using content as a strategic asset in the business, right? So it is truly how we actually manage this asset called content in our business across everything we do. User manuals to, product one sheets, to leaflets, to television advertising, to blogs, to social media, to everything, right? Then content marketing is how do we actually apply content to the marketing practice? How do we use content to make everything we're doing in marketing better? Makes PR better, makes SEO better, makes direct marketing, advertising, makes all those things better for an overall business strategy.
That brings us directly to the next point here. Because you talked about the experience era and also the experience economy, that the customers are going to change and that he's adapt all the things in the last 20 years. And when we're entering now the new level of marketing also, with the users, the new customer journey, and what should be the aims for businesses, and where does the customer journey fit in there?
Yeah, I think in many ways, there's sort of two sides of that coin. I think in many ways businesses have gotten too wrapped up in the idea of the buyer's journey. And what I mean by that is that the buyer's journey, we all know it's more complex than ever before. It's nonlinear. We see the squiggly line sort of spiral from McKinsey, and we see the ball of twine. Everybody's seen those images that, yes, the buyer's journey is now very complex. And so the challenge is that what a lot of marketers are trying to do or learning to do, and this is where I disagree with some of the people who are out there saying this, is they're trying to map every single part of a micro decision journey of a customer to some piece of content. And it just won't work. You can't do that. You can't map every piece of content you have to some micro decision that your consumer is going to make. And so really what we advocate in the book is this idea of getting strategic about just a few, right? So creating great experiences at a few strategic touch points of that buyer's journey. And so understand what it would be to create an amazing experience to make them more aware of your approach or your value in the marketplace, and create a nurturing experience that builds trust and actually changes beliefs and really tries to pull them through to being a customer. And then once they are a customer, maybe create a wonderful loyalty experience that makes them more loyal. If we can do those three things, we can actually work to reduce the amount of content we're actually creating and increase its impact. I mean, that's the real goal here. We don't want to be in the business of constantly spewing out content. We have a business to run, right? We have things to do. Content isn't the only thing we have to do, but it can be an amazing bridge to an audience that we can actually then use to differentiate our business in the marketplace. And so if we can actually reduce the amount of content and increase its impact, well, then we're facilitating the buyer's journey in a really great way, and in a really differentiated way.
That's also, you mentioned one point now with the content that we are going to produce, and also there's a definition of content shock, and everybody's talking about that now. We're making too much content, and now stop doing much more content, do better content.
Right.
And you said not only try to map every content to one touch point, but only the strategic points. So could you get something like an example for this?
Sure. I mean, and the whole content shock thing is, look, we've had content shock since Gutenberg invented the printing press, right? There's been more content than we can actually consume on the planet. So that's not new. And so what's new is that the noise that's getting created across all the different channels, the filtering mechanisms are getting better, right? So whether it's a social media or a search engine or my own feeds that I want to see every day, the filtering mechanisms, the technology for filtering is getting better. And so as a consumer, I have technology that I can see only what I want to see. And so that's the real difference. And so if I'm a marketer, that means I have to be remarkable in order to get through that filter. I have to actually engage the audience to such an extent that they want to receive my content. And so if we understand that, then really what we're trying to do is create those strategic moments where we can really get through those filters and really engage the audience. So a great example of this is, there's so many. I love Jyske Bank in Denmark. What I think they're doing is just unbelievably great. They've transformed their entire business to a 24/7 broadcast media studio. And so they create content around financial literacy, around how to understand interest rates and a credit card and all of that. And it's a news channel. It's a news channel with journalistic pieces and with feature stories, and it's 24/7. And then they've completely reconfigured the insides of their bank to look like a coffee shop. So it's not big glass with all of that. It's like people walking around and helping you and talking to you, delivering content to help you understand financial literacy. And as the CEO of Jyske Bank said, I love this. He said, really, we're a media company that also happens to have a retail bank. And that's the new shift, right? And if you look at somebody like Lego, what Lego has done in creating demand with, the thing I love about Lego so much is they didn't go to Hollywood. There's a Lego movie, right? And they didn't go to Hollywood and say, they spilled out a bunch of bricks and said, well, what can you make of that? They went to Hollywood and said, make the movie you want to make, and then we'll make the toys to match. And that's a different pivot as well. That's basically saying, you know what, it's actually easier for us to pivot on product than it is on audience. And if we can engage an audience using whatever they make, well, we can make the toys. And as technology starts to develop, things like 3D printing and the Internet of Things, and as technology develops and our ability to create product and services, well, the hard thing is going to be to develop an audience that's engaged. The easier thing to do is going to be to create a product that we can sell to that audience. And that's a different relationship. And so it's a different way to approach the buyer's journey, which is let's engage an audience first and then figure out what to sell them.
It's also an interesting question, but for an interesting point, because you said in your book that many marketing strategies focus on the ROI and the metric of interaction, and in terms of strategic touch points and measure engagement. You said, well, that's wrong. Actually, so maybe you can tell us why it is wrong, and also what's to measure then at this point.
Sure. So here's the thing. I have a long rant about why ROI is the wrong measurement for campaign-based direct marketing, right? So very distinct. Now, I won't go off on that rant right now because you guys don't have time. And so but here's the thing. Here's why ROI is great for content marketing. So when we think about content marketing, the goal here is to build an audience. Our goal is to build an audience that we can, as a business, monetize in some way. Part of that will be to make direct marketing, campaign-based marketing, more effective. But if the only thing we do with content is as a different kind of collateral material to support campaign-based marketing, we won't ultimately be as successful as we want to be. That's traditional, marketing automation, right? So we're going to send some people some stuff, and then they're going to come and they're going to register for this piece of content, and we're going to repeat that cycle. That's the wrong way to think about it, ultimately. Because if it's only that, we will run up against a ceiling of how good the quality of content we can create. Because, quite frankly, the price of great content is going to be high. And so what we need to think about is the content that can create an asset over time. If I think about things like HubSpot, right? So HubSpot's a great company that has built assets, a book, a blog, that media, an event, the inbound event. All of these are collections of assets that ultimately provide value to the business, either through data, through cost savings. Inbound, there's 10,000 people who paid $1,000 to go to inbound. There's an event that pays for itself. That's marketing that pays for itself. And if you start looking at things like Red Bull Media House, they generate revenue. If you look at Kraft Food and Family Magazine, it generates revenue. These are marketing programs that actually generate revenue and or cost savings to such an extent that they're an asset for the company. And that's truly the definition of ROI. That's a return on an investment that increases in value over time. Now, campaign-based marketing, of course, we have to support that. But all we can ever hope to do with campaign-based marketing is make our spend a little more effective, right? We can hope to get a little bit cheaper gasoline, right? We can hope to get a little bit better effectiveness out of that spend. And so that's one great goal. Let's get that effectiveness. Let's make our advertising more effective, but let's not make that our only goal. Let's build something. Let's build something worth investing in.
So you're not offering in first point products, but experience, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's that's for many businesses that's way out, right? I talk to CEOs and VPs of sales, and they say, we're not in the media business. We're not, that's not our business. And I say, you're right. That's not your business. You're in the soldering business. Or you're a manufacturer. Or you're this. But if you don't start layering over a great customer experience over the top of that product, independent of whether marketing does it or not, right? It just, people will ask me, well, who should own creating experiences and content-driven experiences for customers? And I say, yes. And because that's the answer. It's not who should own it, it's that somebody should, right? Somebody has to own this as a process in the business. And so if somebody can own that, creating content-driven, valuable experiences, at least in one small way, right? So even if it's just that loyalty experience, just creating something extra so that our customers don't go off to the competitor, or don't go off to somebody that disrupts us in India or China or somewhere else where they can get what we do for cheaper. We have to start adding value. And if we don't start today, well, 2 years from now, when we decide, oh my goodness, it's time for us to start, it may be too late. So we can start small, we can iterate and build, but it's absolutely something that we have to do in some way. Go big or go little, but go.
That's also interesting because when you're talking about the experience and that you understand the customers, there's also a new role for marketing. Well, can you explain what they have to do, marketing as a department now?
Sure. So I'm a marketing guy, and so when Carla and I wrote the book, it was we're both in marketing, and so it's a power grab. we're power hungry and mad with power, but in all seriousness, we think. I mean, so I've had this debate with others that say, well, really, what you're talking about, this customer experience, it's better that the customer service organization own this, or that the CMO owns this for broadly in the business, and I don't care. I think marketing has the opportunity to step up and be the strategic part of the business. I mean, this is just my big goal for marketing, is to get us out of this sales support role. That's the only thing we do, is support the sale of product and create. We talked about this at the beginning of the interview, where we talked about this idea of creation of new value for the business rather than just supporting the current value of the business. And this creation of new value is an opportunity for marketing as a practice to step up, become the strategic leader of the business, to create these experiences across the entirety of the buyer's journey. That's a big responsibility, and it's a big role in the company, and most marketing organizations aren't there yet. And so the real question becomes, is it a challenge of the business? In other words, the people in marketing are ready to accept that responsibility, but the business isn't ready to give it to them yet? Or is it that the marketing team and people running marketing don't have the skill sets in order to do it? And both of those things are usually a little bit true, right? It's usually a little bit of a mix of both. But that's the opportunity, is that marketing can be, like Peter Drucker said 60 years ago, marketing is the unique distinguishing function of the business. That's his quote. And so I believe that marketing is the distinguishing function in the business, but it's not today for the most part.
So it has to change also in the structure of the organization in future, huh?
Indeed, yeah, so this changes everything about the business, and it changes everything we know about the structure of how we organize marketing. I mean, if you think about it today, what we've done over the last 20 years as digital has come in and disrupted our lives is we've just thrown teams at it, right? So now we have social teams and social CRM teams and media teams and brand teams and PR teams and web content teams and email teams and Twitter teams. I mean, we have all these teams everywhere that are siloed from us, right? Where you've got the social team and the PR team who don't like each other, right? Or you've got the digital marketing people and the regular marketing people, which always confuses me, which don't like each other. And so we've got fights going on even within marketing now to create customer experiences. And guess what? Customers don't care. Customers don't care that the Twitter team has more budget than the LinkedIn team, or that the social team has less budget than the email team, or that the PR team is really mad because they can't get access to the demand generator. They don't care about any of that. Their view of the world is, how am I interacting with this brand and this company online, offline, and in any way I want to? And if we don't fix that, if we don't start to integrate all of that and look at it holistically, and by the way, be as able to stand down things as we are to stand up things, that Google Plus team, we better be able to do something with that, like right away. That we have to be able to dismantle things as easily as we construct things. And the only way we'll be able to do that is if marketing changes the way it organizes itself and becomes much more adaptable and agile.
That's a long way to go, right?
Yeah.
And for this long way for our viewers also here in Germany, what you would say for the last tip now for this interview to get the first step doing that now, doing the first step for this long road?
Start small. Don't try and, it can be overwhelming, right? When you start looking at this and you say, wow, we could be doing this and we could be doing that and we could be doing, all of these things, it can be terribly overwhelming the amount of work and or budget and or team members we would need to do this. But we can start small. We can solve smaller problems first and work toward the bigger issues. And as I said earlier, I think the best place to start is to look at your existing funnel, the existing marketing funnel, and what you're responsible for in marketing, and just find out where can we make the biggest improvement. Maybe it's in pulling more people into our website, or maybe it's developing better materials for the sales people to sell things to. Or maybe it's developing a customer loyalty, customer community that could actually add value to the product and service that we offer. Figure out where that thing is, and then start to think about, great, now what value could we provide that customer at that part of their journey, and how might it express itself? Maybe it expresses itself as nothing other than a series of white papers, or maybe it expresses itself as a blog, or maybe it's a customer community or a print magazine. The key is that think of it like a product. Think of it like a year from now, what will we have built, right? So instead of just alternative forms of collateral, that we're throwing into the wind, in other words, let's think about it. What does it look like a year from now? What does that online magazine look like, that customer community? What's the vision for that thing? And then let's work backwards and figure out what are all the different things that would make up that vision. And now let's start building toward that. If we start building toward that in an interesting way, all of the things, the bricks that make up that vision, all of them will make great direct marketing materials. They'll make great collateral materials, but we won't lose sight of the vision. And a year from now, when we've built this thing, we can look back and go, now we've got one thing built. We're starting to build an audience here. Now we can start to think, okay, where's the next place that it hurts? Is it customer loyalty or is it awareness? And we can start building a portfolio of media products that actually add to the holistic customer experience that we're creating.
So see the big picture, be agile, and also start small.
Yeah.
Robert, thank you very much for the interview. It was a pleasure to have you here, and I hope you enjoyed the time here on the Content World today.
Thank you so much.
Vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen und schön, dass ihr dabei gewesen seid. Entschuldigung für die Stimme und die Aussätze, da habe ich noch einen kleinen Frosch im Hals, aber das wird besser. Mach's gut, ciao.
Ciao.